Hello, this is wmpyr here to talk about, once again, this movie, The Hunted, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. Okay, so I posted this on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and I was saying that this is the movie that I recommend for people that are interested in Filipino martial arts. And I got a private message from a world famous Filipino martial arts instructor, which let me not say the person's name, but the person informed me, they were nice enough to tell me that in the Filipino martial arts circles, this movie is looked down upon. They don't like it. And one is they don't like the Filipino martial arts portrayed in this movie, and two is the knife. They don't like the knife. Okay, so those were the two reasons. So let me go into that real quick. Okay, so now for me, my opinion doesn't change about this movie because this is a Hollywood level movie. You have a legendary director and you have two actors that have reached the pinnacle in the Hollywood films. So Hollywood production wise, this is legit. It's solid. And if you're talking about a movie that shows Filipino martial arts, that portrays Filipino martial arts at a Hollywood level film, this is the only one. So whether you like it or not, take it or leave it, this is all we got. So that's why I recommend this movie. So my opinion doesn't change. Until they make something better, this is it. There's other movies like The Bourne Identity, which uses Filipino martial arts as one of the many martial arts used in that film. So that's too confusing to the viewer if I say, yeah, they use Filipino martial arts in there, but it's one of, they mixed it up with a bunch of other styles. So there's one or two techniques you might see in a fight scene that is totally Filipino martial arts, that the roots come from there. But the average person watching that, they're not gonna get that. They're not gonna understand that. Okay, so they're gonna get the totally wrong idea. So that's why The Hunted for me is still Hollywood level wise. This is the only movie, and that's why I recommend it to people so they could get a quick idea of what it is I teach, what it is that I do. It may not be the most accurate idea because it's not, and I can understand many of what the world class instructor was telling me, that the Filipino martial arts depicted in the movie, they don't like it. I get it, because for me too, I'm disappointed that they don't show any sticks, training with the sticks at least, because sticks is a big part of Filipino martial arts, and it was a huge part in my training and still is. Even though I specialize in the knife, the sticks are still, to this day, a big part. I go back to it constantly. So in this movie doesn't show any of that. And yeah, to me, that's disappointing for sure. Now, let's talk about the knife. So the knife used in this movie, even though they're using Filipino knife fighting techniques, they're not using a Filipino knife. They're using a wilderness survival knife. So, and in particular, it's the one designed by Tom Brown Jr. Now, some people could be jealous about that or whatever. I don't care. To me, a knife is a tool. So, in Filipino martial arts, we're trained to use whatever's available. So, if you have a knife, hey, you're lucky, and we're gonna use that no matter what it is. So, in that sense, I get it. But it would have been nice if they actually used the actual Filipino knife designed for Filipino knife fighting. That would make more sense to me. But in this film, instead, they're using this wilderness survival knife. And that knife has been controversial all over the net, the internet. And there's a lot of people that hate it and whatnot. the way that I see it, and I saw a really, really good review breaking it down, and I wish I knew the channel name, but I don't remember. But this person basically said that this knife is a jack of all trades, master of none. And a lot of other people, that's their criticism. They tend to agree with that it's designed to do a lot of things, but none of those things well. So they don't like it. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Now that might be, to other people, that's a good thing. So it's kind of like your early MMA fighters where they could do everything. They're well balanced, but none of the things super well. Okay. So to me, in a way, that's a strength and a weakness. So now I've seen more in-depth details about the breakdown and review of the knife, which I thought were excellent and gave me a much more thorough understanding of the knife. And one guy said that, okay, it could do a lot of things, but the thing that I use the most is the thing that is the least emphasized on this knife. Therefore, I want to like this knife, but it's not that good for me, is what that person said. And that person was saying that with a knife that size, they want to be using it more for like whittling and creating tinder and things of that nature. So, and that part of the knife is pretty small, and the knife actually has a big head that could be used for chopping and stuff. But then they were like, if you're gonna chop, then why not carry a hand axe? So anyway, I thought it was a really good review, and their opinion made sense to me. So from their point of view, they wanted to like the knife, but it didn't work out or they saw better options. Okay, fair enough, So, but anyway, so let's move along. And another thing on YouTube right now is that there's a lot of YouTube channels now. This seems to be very popular, where people do breakdowns of fight scenes from movies. And yeah, so definitely this movie, somebody or multiple people have done a breakdown of the knife fight scene in this film, which occurs several times. There's several knife fight scenes, and they did breakdowns of it. And in my opinion, right? Okay, so first of all, the techniques used in this movie are real. They're real Filipino martial arts techniques. These are techniques that I've learned. These are techniques that are actually taught. So that, to me, is refreshing and awesome to see that. The context is not real. So it's not portrayed realistically. And I can see why a lot of Filipino martial arts instructors would have problems with that. That even though the techniques are real, the way they're using it is nowhere near reality. It's totally Hollywood. So I 100% agree, and I understand that. For one, is look, I'm not big into breakdowns of movies because you're breaking down something that's not real. In a Hollywood movie like this, I think if you go in too deep, you're just nitpicking and you're criticizing something that, once again, is not even real in the first place. So what's the point? I don't understand that. Okay. So to sit back and say, oh, that would never happen, and that he's using the technique incorrectly and this and that. Dude, if you were there and if it was real, you're going to do whatever it takes, even if it's not picture perfect. So to me, I can't agree with that at all. So whether you cut the arm on the inside or the outside, at the end of the day, under pressure, this guy might be just as good, if not better than you, and you're fighting under conditions that are not ideal. You're wet, you're cold, you're tired, you're scared, and the adrenaline's pumping. If you cut the guy's arm, does it really matter if it was the inside or the outside? You cut the guy's arm. Your brain is moving so fast. Things are happening so quickly. You don't have time. You're going to do whatever you can. You're going to do the best that you can, whatever you can. So that, to me, is silly, man. It's easy to sit back and say stuff like that. So, going into too much detail, I don't think it, like I said, I don't like it at all personally. So The big picture, once again, you attack the arm, defang the snake. Okay, that makes sense. Now, do you prefer the inside over the outside? Okay, sure, I can understand that. But once again, until it's real, until you're in those shoes, I don't care at this point. Now, the next thing, whether you're, cutting the arm or cutting the neck or whatever, once again, that's another thing. In a real life situation, under pressure, I mean, a knife's in your face at that point, you may feel claustrophobic, or in the only thing that occurs in your brain is you hear your instructor's voice going, we cut the arm, we always cut the arm. So you might go to the arm even though the neck was open. So, all this, until you've been in real combat, okay, I remember being in a situation where I grabbed the guy's hair, I pulled his face down to here, and I could hear my instructor's voice in my head. This is a street fight, right? This is a street fight, and my instructor's voice was saying, elbow is the most powerful weapon we have in Muay Thai kickboxing. Elbow has a high knockout, KO rate. So, back when he told me, at least once a year, people would die from an elbow shot, I think, to the back of the head, I think. So that it occurs by accident. So he was telling, I could hear all this, and I was like, I need an elbow, but I couldn't. So that's real life, all right? I didn't have enough practice with the technique. So even though I knew this was the ultimate weapon that my Muay Thai kickboxing instructor taught me, and here I am in a real life situation, I grabbed his hair, I pulled the head down, and I had a perfect shot for an elbow, I couldn't do it, okay? I just didn't have enough practice. I was total beginner. So, so that's the kind of thing that occurs in real life where it may not make sense to someone watching from the outside, but that's reality, okay? So the other thing is, dropping the knife and catching it with the other hand. Look, once again, from the big picture of things, switching from the right hand to the left hand, from my experiments that I did with my students, that was the biggest killer, period. So like defang the snake, you cut the arm. Now, whether it's the inside or the outside, yes, we have preferences, but at the end of the day, you just want to cut the freaking arm, right? So kind of like that, you don't want to get too nitpicky. If you can pass it from the right hand to the left hand, it doesn't matter if you threw it. It doesn't matter if it did a circle, okay? It don't matter. If you could get it to the right, to the left, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, as long as you accomplish that. And just by the way, we did drop it and it did catch. And I don't recall anyone in my class, the students, dropping the knife or that move failing. I'm sure it could, but it successfully worked. It worked. I'm not saying that's 100%, but we didn't have a problem with it. And we used it just like that. Maybe the distance wasn't huge, but, you just dropped it and switched. And that was the biggest killer. That technique is paramount. So that's all I got to say about that. And they show it in the movie. And they show it, and he gets a clean cut. So that's a good, to me, very realistic message from a Hollywood movie. And the most important message from this movie, you got real life, what happens in real life, which you can analyze and break down and try to figure out, why did this happen? Why was this the result? I believe that's valuable. But in a Hollywood movie, they're just trying to give you a message. They're trying to give you a vision, a storytelling. Okay, so what is the message here? And the message should be the most important thing. None of this detail, all this stuff that I just talked about, none of that's important compared to this one thing, which is two dudes going at each other with a knife. They both have knives, or, a knife is involved. People are going to get jacked up. Two guys, each one has a knife, then both of them are going to get jacked up. What happens in this movie? They both get jacked up. It's a bloody mess. So to me, this movie, in that sense, is a complete success. And that is the message I believe they're trying to portray to you. And they do a good job. It's bloody, it's nasty, and they both get cut up real bad. If you want to make this more realistic, then maybe a week later, Tommy Lee Jones may have died. His character may have died from the wounds. So then that tells you, to me, that would make it more realistic. So that it was actually a draw. You may think Tommy Lee Jones's character won, but no. A week later, he died from the wounds, meaning it was a draw. So if you portray it that way, though, it's more realistic. But story-wise, it's not as good. And story-wise, you want a black and white, who won, who lost kind of thing. And the father and the son, or the creation, the Frankenstein's monster and the Frankenstein kind of story. And now the Dr. Frankenstein has to live with the guilt of what he did, which was, he basically, from the very beginning, the creation was doomed kind of thing. And that's this story right here, is the Frankenstein story. So it makes sense that they did it that way. But anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.